Renewable Heat Now is a campaign of organizations from across the entire state, and we work on making sure that buildings are climate compliant, climate friendly, and we've been working on legislation in the last couple of years, and we're going to keep doing that as we move into the 2024-2025 legislative session. I can't believe it's already 2025. Go ahead to the next slide. Um, the reason why we focus a lot on buildings is because they are the largest source of greenhouse gases in New York State, from burning fossil fuels for heating, for hot water, for cooking. And methane, or fracked gas, is leaking along the entire pathway from the drilling pads through the pipelines at every infrastructure part along the way. And that goes right off into the air and creates our atmospheric warming. And that creates a lot of storms like we just recently saw. Go to the next slide. I'm going to pass it over to Jessica to talk about our letter that we're going to send to Hochul.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Jessica Agile. I use she
You're
and
on
they
mute.
pronouns. Can you hear me okay?
I
Yes,
was on
fine.
mute.
Okay, great. Again, I'm Jessica Agile. I use she and they pronouns. I'm with Alliance for a Green Economy, also known as AGREE. And I'm going to talk to you tonight about our 4th annual Building Electrification and Equity platform. This is a platform of demands that we have put together. This is our 4th year across the climate movement, across organizations that work on specifically on getting greenhouse gases out of buildings and ensuring that the transition in our buildings is equitable. And that the benefits of this transition are really equitably reaching the people that need them the most, the low-income households and the households in our disadvantaged communities, environmental justice communities. So we have written a letter to the governor asking her to put our priorities in her, to make our priorities her priorities, and to state them in her State of the State address in early January, and to incorporate, as appropriate, them into the state budget and into her executive budget proposal. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about what the 4 pillars of the platform that we are about to send to the governor. So it will come as no surprise probably to many of you that the first one is passing the New York Heat Act. Enabling an affordable gas transition, making sure that we can move money out of the billions of dollars that we're putting into gas infrastructure and moving that into providing renewable heating and cooling for everyone in the state. So it's a big focus of ours last year, the New York Heat Act. It will be a big focus again. We also, along with that, are asking the governor to put money in the budget to fund retrofit readiness. And Andra later will talk more about this, but essentially we want to make sure that homes that are not ready to weatherize and electrify because they have deferred maintenance and other barriers have the funding to overcome those barriers so that we're not leaving anyone behind in this transition. And we're getting funds where they need, where in some of the parts of the state into the households that live in some of the poorest quality housing, and to get it up to a place where it can be insulated and weatherized and electrified. We also are asking that the governor make sure that her state agencies are complying with the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, our state landmark climate law, making sure that gas utilities are doing their part by requiring them to reduce greenhouse gases in line with the CLCPA. Right now, we don't have specific emissions limits for utilities to plan around and to achieve. And that's a big old hole in in progress to meeting our climate law and the mandates in the climate law. So we need to plug that hole by making sure that state agencies are defining the amount of emissions that they are expecting utilities to reduce, and then putting those regulations onto the utilities. And then finally, last but not least, we really want the state to put its money where its mouth is and lead by example. We're asking for the state to fund thermal energy networks at the Empire State Plaza, which is, this grandiose complex of buildings in the state capitol that is currently heated by fracked gas. And other state complexes and campuses that have multiple buildings that are perfect for thermal energy networks and are currently some of the highest emitting state facilities. We want to get thermal energy networks accelerated and funded in those areas. So that is our platform for 2025. We hope that you will join us in pushing the governor to adopt these priorities in her state of the state and to fund these priorities in her budget, and to include the New York Heat Act in her budget as well. You can go to the next slide. And just to situate us on our timeline for our campaign as we work to get our priorities across the finish line next year, the reason we're sending a letter to the governor is because the first thing that happens in the legislative session is the governor does a state of the state where she announces her priorities and releases her executive budget proposal, which can include her priority legislation as well as her funding priorities. So between now and that state of the state, which will likely be in the first or second week of January, and the executive budget, which will be, just a few days after that, in the lead up to that, we're doing a lot of activities that are focused on the governor. So the first thing that we're doing is we're circulating this letter that outlines these priorities for organizations to sign on. And if your organization has not signed on to this letter yet, we hope that you will do so. We urge you to do so. If you're a member of an organization, please contact the leadership of your organization, ask them to sign on. If you are leading an organization, please make sure you've signed on. Folks are sharing in the chat the link to how to get your organization signed on, and the sign-ons are due next week on October 22nd. On October 23rd, we're going to have a day of action around this BEEP letter, and it's going to involve a few things, which I'll go over shortly. Then in November, we'll be preparing for a bunch of action where we're going to be building momentum in December. So we hope that you will join us on future power hours to build up that momentum, to invite others to those power hours. Let's get our participation ready and get our friends and our allies plugged into this campaign so we can really hit the ground running and win in the 2025 legislative session. In December, we're going to have a statewide distributed action day. We're going to have at least 12 events in 12 locations on 12/12, focused on getting New York Heat in the legislative session, in the budget, and the other priorities of the BEEP letter. So we hope that you will join, and there will be a little bit more information about that later in this power hour. And then in January, as I said, the governor will do her state of the state address. We'll be able to see what of our priorities got in there. We'll be pushing to make sure that we get our priorities into her executive budget. And then we are gonna have a big rally on January 29th in Albany. So we hope that you will all join us and bring your friends and your allies and everyone you know to the rally on January 29th. In February, we will be working on making sure that the Assembly and the Senate get our priorities into their versions of the budget. There will be a lot of activities related to that, budget hearings and various pressure and in-district lobbying. And then in March, we're expecting to mobilize again to Albany. The date is being worked out still, but it will be announced. And all of this is building up to a final state budget, which is due on April 1st, which we hope will include the New York Heat Act and the GAP Fund and all of our other priorities. You know, we know that the budget could be late, but we're kind of on a sprint between now and the end of March or early April to get all of our priorities through the state budget. Okay, next slide. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the first upcoming day of action, which is next week, October 23rd. So I mentioned, please get your organization onto this letter. And then on the 23rd, we're going to send the letter to the governor. And the reason we're doing it on the 23rd is it's Energy Justice Day. That should say 2025, apologies. We'll send our letter to the governor. We want to accompany that with a bunch of other pressure around this letter. So we're hoping to build a social media storm. We'll be emailing you a kit with graphics and links to share over social media. You know, if your organization signed on to this letter, we hope that you will highlight it in your social media posts that day, talking about having signed the letter and calling on the governor to incorporate these priorities into our platform. And we're also going to ask people to call the governor's office to reiterate the priorities in the letter. So we'll be emailing you with a phone to action link. So I hope that you'll put October 23rd on your calendar for taking action to really kick off the campaign and the pressure on the governor to get our priorities into the state of the state and her executive budget. Okay, so with that, I am going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to turn it over to Andra, who's going to go into a little bit more detail about the Retrofit Readiness Fund, the Green Affordable Pre-Electrification Fund, and what you can do to help support that fund.
Okay, good. Hi, everyone. I'm Andra with Alliance for a Green Economy. I'm the program director there, and I want to tell you a little bit more about the GAP Fund. So as households around New York State are learning about and becoming more interested in the health and financial and efficiency benefits that accompany whole home electrification, more and more of these households are finding that their homes face significant barriers to weatherization and electrification. And these barriers are especially severe in low to moderate income households. So some of these barriers include toxic materials such as asbestos, lead, and mold, really outdated heating systems, deferred upgrades and repairs such as leaking roofs and problems with foundations. Also, there's a problem tracking down and applying for funding from home improvement and efficiency programs. It's often really tedious, and homeowners have to juggle different programs, and contractors have to sometimes apply multiple times for something just to complete a project. So the GAP Fund, which stands for Green Affordable Pre-Electrification Fund, would give funding so that these problems could be tackled, and so that the state commitment, New York State is committed to 2 million climate-friendly homes by 2030, and 800,000 of these homes must be electrification-ready, low-income households. So we really need the GAP Fund in order for New York State to be able to do what they committed to do. The state needs to be prepared to assist low-income homes overcome these significant barriers. And so the GAP Fund is what we are suggesting as a way to tackle those obstacles. And to show statewide support for the GAP Fund, we have hot off the press today a letter on the Action Network platform that individuals can send to Governor Hochul. So we're starting with a modest goal of 200 letters, but we expect to get more like 2,000 letters sent in the coming months. And if your organization uses Action Network and you'd like to be listed as a co-sponsor for this letter campaign, please let Kim or me know. And so please, if you could go to the I Support the Gap Fund letter and check it out, open it up, and even send a letter maybe today, or just bookmark it so that you can find it later, and then share it out with your networks afterward. I'm going to give you a minute to do that, to open it and take a look up in there and see what it's like. And if you know that your organization would like to be a co-sponsor after you've taken a brief look at it, you can just type your name, your contact info in the chat. So to find the letter, you would go to the link that's just above the second to last link in the chat and click on that. And that should take you to a page in actionnetwork.org letters that shows Alliance for a Green Economy at the top, because this is so hot off the press, we don't have an image for it yet. And it says, I support green, healthy, comfortable homes for all. And then if you fill out the take action part on the side and click the green start writing bar, it should take you into the letter itself. How's that going for anyone? Is everyone able to get in there? Can I see some thumbs up or some comments in the chat? All right. Thank you, AJ. Do people need a little more time? Or should I move on to the next slide? Let's go on to the next slide. So it's also my pleasure to talk to you about Thursday, December 12th. 12/12. We chose that date because we thought nobody's going to forget it. So Thursday, December 12th, we're hoping to have at least 12 distributed actions across New York State in support of the 4 pillars of the Building Electrification Equity Platform. So it's a Renewable Heat Now and our Building Electrification Allies movement that are rolling out this action. And the events can have their local flavor. They can be rally and press conference. They can be a tour of an electrified building showing what's possible. It can be located at an area that is building out more fossil fuel infrastructure and your phone can be outraged. We welcome all sorts of ideas. And we are holding some planning meetings. So if you're interested in planning an event in your area, you can drop a note in the chat to me and I'll loop you into that. So the planners are still wordsmithing the event name, but after our first planning meeting, there are grassroots plans brewing at 11 locations. We've got Long Island, we've got a place in the Bronx, Harlem area, we've got Rockaway, Westchester, Kingston, Albany, Mohawk Valley, Syracuse, Binghamton, Ithaca, and Buffalo. So if you're interested in working on or attending any of those events, Let me copy and paste that list into the chat. Drop me a note in the chat and we'll get you connected with the people who are working on it. If you're interested in putting together an event at a location that is not yet listed on our list, definitely get in touch with us too, because we're looking for at least one more location to get the 12. And as I said, just because we imagine 12 locations does not mean that we are limited to only 12. The more, the better. And this is going to be a great way to draw the media's and with it the governor's attention to our BEEP platform, highlighting why the 4 pillars are necessary and why including them in the budget would be good for New York and good for New Yorkers. And Renewable Heat Now will be able to help you with signs, with shirts, with media coordination and outreach, press releases and quotes, so it won't all fall to your organizations to be responsible for all the details. So I hope to see a lot of people interested in this, and I'll send you more information about it in the coming weeks. And now I'm going to pass it to Kim for the next slide.
Thanks, Andra. Another thing that we have coming up, and I think you're probably hearing we have a lot of stuff happening and we'll send you links. It's because we're feverishly working on trying to organize a good system for everybody to plug into. And this is one of these, this is another one. So um, several of us were up in Albany in early September, and it was the first meeting of the New York State Energy Planning Board. And since we were at this other meeting, we thought, oh, let's all put on our Renewable Heat Now t-shirts and go into the meeting because it was a public meeting. So we did. And what the New York State Energy Planning Board was discussing there, it's like all the heads of state agencies. There's a federal electricity officer, and then there's an appointee from the governor, an appointee from the Senate, and appointee from the Assembly. So it's like 14 to 16, 17 folks or something. And they had their very first meeting on the 10th of September. And I wanted to highlight this photo. Oh, my cat wants to come in and see too. Um, is that how they set the room up, knowing that we were going to come and participate as an audience member? They set it up in a horseshoe with their backs turned to us. And I thought that was kind of, you know, we have to kind of nudge our way back in there. But if you see on the right-hand side, we were all festive and wearing our awesome Renewable Heat Now t-shirts, and we were like ready to fight. Um, and so they've issued a scoping plan for the energy plan, and they're asking all of us to make comments on it. I'm going to put the link to this page in the chat right there, so you can there's a link to the scoping plan in this chat. And in the scoping plan, there's nuclear, there is, fracked gas, and we can't have any of that. So we're going to try to organize a comment prompt for everybody to send in with, we'll have very specific talking points, and a lot of them will echo the same things that we've told Governor Hochul in the letter that we're sending on the 23rd. So just stay tuned. The comments aren't due until November 25th, but we'll try to have an action prompt for you in the follow-up email to this Power Hour. So we got to raise our voices in all the places that we possibly can to make sure that we can meet our climate goals and make sure that, New York State has an equitable energy plan. Okay, next slide. And then, you know how we all love going to Albany. We are planning our very first 2025 mobilization in Albany on January 29th, which is a Wednesday. And we have a link, so you can RSVP to it already now. And I think Lorenzo will pop that in the chat. And then you can RSVP, so then just your name's in there and you'll get all the updates and things. And we'll be starting to populate things like transportation, just updates, things like that. So, you know, we usually have it pretty well organized where we can make sure that everybody feels really welcome, really taken care of, and really heard. We want to create meetings for you to go visit elected officials, to do lobbying for the New York Heat Act and all the other things in our equity platform. Okay, that next slide, I'm going to pass it over to Andra to close us out.
Thanks, Kim. So yeah, we are planning a lot of things, but we have a lot of allies. And so there'll be a lot of help and a lot of people participating. And we also want to keep growing our grassroots power. So the first thing that we need is to get some more organizations signed on to the BEEP letter. The deadline is noon on October 22nd, but you know, if you can get it in by close of business, I can get you on that letter. So please share that with your organizations, with your groups. They can be neighborhood groups. It can be your faith organization, a youth group in your area. Take a look at the list of organizations that are signed on there, and you'll see the great diversity that we want to have involved in the work going forward. So on the 23rd, we're going to be sharing out the call information and the social media action information that's going to be related to the release of that letter to Governor Hochul and to the media. Also, don't forget to sign up already for the November 21st Power Hour. Even if you find you can't make it, if you have signed up, you can get a recording of it and it'll be just like you were there and didn't miss a thing. And please invite friends to the Power Hour. It's really quite painless, and it's a good way for them to get involved in something, get involved as part of a bigger group, all working together. Everybody's talents matter. Some people are really great in lobby meetings. Other people are really great on social media. Some people bring along a great trove, a group of people who like to make phone calls. We need everybody involved, and we respect everybody's skills. So please invite some friends along and sign up for the December 12th Power Hour. Invite more friends. Yes, we're having the December 12th Power Hour on the same day that we're having the distributed day of action. It's going to be an amazing Power Hour. You're going to hear back from all the places that had actions. People's energy will be high. Everybody will be so excited to share what they did and share their photos and stuff like that. And while you're at it, please sign up for the January 29th mobilization to Albany. It's going to be like a movement reunion. It always is such a great time seeing everybody we've been working with in Albany. We're all wearing our shirts. It's very easy to find the right group to be with. We have people to show you around. We already have the third floor terrace in the Legislative Office Building reserved for that day. We'll be feeding you lunch. We'll be giving you snacks, and we'll have everything planned out for you. Then send the I support the GAP Fund letter to the governor, and make sure that you share that letter link in your networks. We're going for over 2,000 letters being sent in the coming months. And then, as Kim said, we couldn't possibly get everything ready to share with you tonight. So please stay tuned for emails about call relays, social media actions, and the list of December 12th events. So very much appreciate all of you being here. We wrapped it up really quickly today. So you get almost a half hour back of your evening to enjoy with your families and your friends. Does anybody else have anything they want to close out with? Kim, Jessica?
No, if folks have any questions, we can stick around and have a conversation if that feels good for you.
Thank you all for continuing to come and participate in this campaign. We're really excited to see what we can do together in 2025.
You know, I have one piece of news to share. So earlier today, I'm part of the long term, I'm a party to the long-term planning for National Grid Downstate. And we were asking questions of National Grid, who wants to just stuff us up with a whole bunch of more fracked gas in New York City and Long Island. And I asked the lead at the New York State Department of Public Service, I said, you know, would all this change if we were to pass the New York Heat Act? And she told me, she said, yes, we actually, the Department of Public Service and the Public Service Commission support the New York Heat Act, and we would be able to have more tools in order to meet our climate goals if it passed. And so I'm just like really excited to get this passed as soon as humanly possible, because we can't afford to have National Grid building more gas pipelines where I live and where everybody that I love lives. And so yeah, it's going to affect our everyday personal lives and the climate. So just a little pep talk for the New York Heat Act.
All right, I don't see any more questions, so, but lots of love in the emoji land here. So I think with that, we'll let you all go have a wonderful evening. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. That was a great meeting.
Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Thanks to everybody.